Darkness and light. We're told that in the beginning there was darkness everywhere until light came. Right. We notice light more both when there's an overabundance and when there's not much. Right? I've taken to walking at night, and people tell me I need a flashlight. Most of the time, I don't need a flashlight unless there's some light source that's messing with my vision. There's enough ambient light from the moon and the stars to light the road for my eyes to see, until something brighter comes along, and then suddenly I can't see anything at all other than the light. Right? Light is important. Too much can seem to blind us, right? When we're used to light all the time, we don't always understand it. We don't value it. But when we're in darkness, we value light. I value much more the light of those stars when I'm walking on a dark night than when I'm running around in my lit house, right? I'm in the midst of the light. I don't value the light of the stars. I go, that's not very bright. I've got brightness in here. When I'm out on a dark night, I value that light a lot more. How many of you were in the midst of a peak aurora season, as in a few years where the auroras are more visible? How many of you got to see the auroras this week or saw photos of them? I see a few hands, a lot more for photos. And it was interesting, on the night of peak activity, we had clouds. But the night before, you could actually, if there was a lack of light pollution, you could see the color and the light in the sky, even without the cameras. Now, we have these great things with cameras that can do long exposure and can pick up all that light and show us the color. So the next few nights, every time I went out, I'm like, I can't see if there's anything there. I'm going to take a picture of it. Nope. Or there's a faint hint of something. It made me pay attention because I had seen something before. Then I was looking for it after that, right? But that first night, I could see, when I was in a dark space, I could see the waves of the green and the red going across the sky. I'd seen that once before up in Wisconsin, except it wasn't color, it was these white waves, which is actually more often what I see when it's a light aurora. It makes us pay attention when we see things of wonder and when we see the light. But you have to be in the darkness to notice and care that there's light there, right? Now in our text, it's not talking about visible light, but light and darkness as justice and injustice. We experience darkness in many different ways in our lives. When you see or experience evil, when you see or experience injustice, right? That's a darkness. Or when you're alone, feeling alone in the midst of a crowd, that in its own way is a darkness. We experience light when we experience the opposite of that, when we feel fellowship, connection. When we see justice done, or we notice the beauty in the world around us, or the beauty in action. When we see a child lift up their arms to their parent, right? We go, oh, that's beautiful. We experience light in that way too. Now I'll come back to that, but in our text today, when we get this beautiful word of promise, we do have to back up and say, it says, but there will be no gloom, right? So there was gloom for some people at some time, right? We back up into chapter 8, it's talking about this coming Assyrian invasion of the north and of the south, although they then backed off of the south for a while. It was later that Judah was taken into exile. It says, God spoke to Isaiah. It says, for the Lord spoke thus to me with his strong hand upon me and warned me not to walk in the way of this people, saying, do not call conspiracy all that people call conspiracy. Do not fear what they fear, nor be in dread. But the Lord of hosts, him you shall honor as holy. Let him be your fear, and let him be your dread. He will become a sanctuary and a stone of offense and a rock of stumbling to both houses of Israel, a trap and a snare to the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and many shall stumble on it. They shall fall and be broken, they shall be snared and taken. Bind up the testimony and seal the teaching among my disciples. We had, I believe, this text last year. I will wait for the Lord, who is hiding his face from the house of Jacob, and I will hope in him. Behold, I and the children whom the Lord has given me are signs and portents in Israel from the Lord of hosts who dwells on Mount Zion. When they say to you, inquire of the mediums and the necromancers who chirp and mutter, should not a people inquire of their God? Should they inquire of the dead on behalf of the living? These are things that were happening. To the teaching and to the testimony, if they will not speak according to this word, it is because they have no dawn. They will pass through the land greatly distressed and hungry. And when they are hungry, they will be enraged and will speak contemptuously against their king and their God, and turn their faces upward. And they will look to the earth, but behold distress and darkness, the gloom of anguish, and they will be thrust into thick darkness. It was saying there was a judgment coming on the people of Israel and later on the people of Judah because of injustices being done, because they were turning to other gods as well and not turning to their God. They were going to people who supposedly raised the dead, people who were mediums who spoke to other spirits, and they were going and inquiring of them instead of after the God of Israel, the God of Judah. The one who had led them out of Egypt, who had given them good things. They were turning to these other things. And they were participating in deeds of darkness. To continue after our word of hope here in chapter 9, it talks about why they will be doing this. So, for everyone is godless and an evildoer, and every mouth speaks folly. They are doing injustice. So there will be a reckoning. That was why they were in darkness. Now, I had someone today when I posted these words from the next chapter, chapter 10, which is the continuation, the end of this, talking about the judgment against Judah. It says, woe to those who decree iniquitous decrees and the writers who keep writing oppression, to turn aside the needy from justice and to rob the poor of my people of their right, that widows may be their spoil and they may make the fatherless their prey. What will you do on the day of punishment and the ruin that will come from afar? To whom will you flee for help, and where will you leave your wealth? Nothing remains but to crouch among the prisoners or fall among the slain. For all this his anger has not turned away, and his hand is stretched out still. Right? This is speaking to those who were going through dark, who had perpetuated other people being in darkness, who were experiencing and looking to the influence of the evil one and perpetuating it on other people, saying they were speaking on behalf of God. And I had someone in response to this go, well, what about those priests who commit acts of pedophilia against his example was young boys? We have other examples in our society of others being crimes against children, of others being hurt. And there's crimes against many people. It says, if your God is really omnipotent and strong enough, he will strike them immediately. And that's our temptation, right? That's what we would like. Those things are things of darkness. And our job is to call them out. And God uses people, his people, to bring justice. And that's what we are supposed to be doing. We are supposed to be on God's behalf calling these things out and speaking up and being his hands and feet in the world. Bringing light, right? Jesus says, I am the light of the world. And then he says to his followers, you are the light of the world. We as little Christ's reflection of Jesus are to be the light, his light in the world. His hands and feet bringing light and hope and justice and beauty. It can't come from us alone. It has to be a reflection of God. God chooses to work through his servants. And yes, he brings consequences when people don't listen. But it's not often as a lightning bolt. It's through using his people to shine light on situations and bring about healing. But it can take time. It's worth the hard work. It's worth the hard work of listening, of saying, okay, God, what do you want me to do here? The hope for the people then was fulfilled partly in Hezekiah being king. So the hope for the people of Judah was that they were not taken away right away because they had this king who did follow the Lord and did try to bring about justice. But it couldn't fully be fulfilled, right? Because that king could not be called Mighty God, Wonderful Counselor, Prince of Peace. He wasn't those things. Who could fulfill that? Jesus. And yet we are still in that place of already and not yet. Because Jesus has come. He has brought light and life into the world. He is this light of hope for the people. He was for them then. He was this light of hope still being looked for far off. He was light and hope for the people in Israel when he came. And he is still that light and hope for us because we are still waiting for the completion of this to happen, right? But elsewhere it says, do not look for the day of the Lord. The day of the Lord is dreadful. When that true justice, when that recompense comes, it will not be a pleasant time. It wasn't for Israel. It wasn't for Judah. Because each of those days where the Lord acts is a day of judgment. And it's rough. We do look forward to the day that the Lord comes, when he will bring all of us to himself, but there will also be in between that day of judgment. And so, why does God wait? To give us time. To give us time to do his work. To give us time to look to him in hope. To give us time to repent if we're the ones who have let ourselves be workers of darkness rather than workers of light. To turn around. Notice he gave Israel and Judah a long time to turn around. He still gives them time because Jesus came. He says, now listen to me, look to me. I am the light of the world. He gives us time too. It would be a mess if God zapped us every time we did something wrong, right? Like if we take that literally, God's going to zap you every time you do something wrong, we'd be fried, right? So it's very tempting. And I don't really know how to respond to this person without a conversation when they just want to lash out, right? The one who talked to me online. They just want to lash out. It's very tempting to say, if God's omnipotent, he's just going to blast everyone who does wrong. I'm glad he chooses not to, even though there are times I wish he would. Because I'm in those who would be blasted, I'm sure. Because there's times I'm not perfect. Like every day. I'm grateful for the Lord who brings light and who brings hope, who brings forgiveness, who keeps coming after me, and he keeps coming after you too. Says, let me shine light here. It's painful to have that exposed, but let me clean it up. Let me mend your wounds. Let me bring healing. Let me bring life where this world and your sin is bringing darkness and death. This is what we are called to. And this is why we have hope. I liked this quote from one of my professors, Craig Kester. He says, hope is something generated beyond yourself. And this is my paraphrase of what he said here. The light beyond yourself brings definition and pulls us forward through the darkness to the future that God has in store. This gospel is the light that gives us hope. This good news of who Jesus is, that he is the light of the world. He is the one who brings healing and who will bring justice and truth and light into our lives. This gives us hope. These words give us hope too, that to us a child has been born. A son, God's son, has been given to bring light and to bring life. And God has increased our joy. And he is breaking, has broken the rod of the oppressor and the one who brings burdens. Another quote I found from someone, this is from a poem by Mary Oliver. It says, I will sing for what is behind the light. Light, light, and more light. That's a great picture of who God is. What's behind the light? More light. What's behind that light? More light. God is light. And God is life. And God is love. And he keeps wanting to shine that in the midst of the darkness. And when we're in darkness, we pay attention to that light. May we hold on to that hope and that light. May we notice beauty. And may we let ourselves, we can't produce hope. It comes from outside us. Let us allow ourselves to notice those moments of light, whether big or small, in our lives, where we encounter beauty, where we are connected with others, when we feel welcome or extend welcome, when we receive encouragement or give encouragement. Let us reflect the light of Christ by shining it into others' lives as well, allowing God to use us to bring others hope. He is the one who brings life, who brings light. And he comes for you. He will not leave you in darkness.